Hello, like to Sage here on the Sage channel. And yesterday we had a grand little old update come out for space engineers, and this update, as expected, did not release planets. But it did give us some pretty nice features, like the thing I'm flying towards right now in Spectator Cam. That right there, my friends, is not some sort of, oh, woe is me face. No, that is a door. It's a fantastical new door. And if we were to go ahead and press the button and actually open it up, you can see it's a fancy sliding door. Not the standard sliding door to left and right, one that actually slides around a little tiny railing that we have on the bottom. It's not final textures or model, I don't think, but it is pretty nifty nonetheless. And it also, if you stick two of them together, they make a pretty damn nice airlock. So you can go ahead and airlock yourself in and out. They're also designed mainly so that you can fly through them as such as this, without having to deal with always needing to rotate one way or the other. Sort of like the hatch door, but of course this stays within its own block, and doesn't protrude out into any other blocks in any direction. If you'd like to see what it looks like when you're placing it in, I can find it right here. There we go, door. And you see it is a pretty nice design overall. Yeah, pretty nice. I like it. Anyway, moving on from that, we have a bunch of solar panel nonsense behind us. And the reason I have all these solar panels stuck in here is because they've updated how batteries work. You might have heard me in the past say that I hated the way batteries work, as well as I'm pretty sure everyone else in the entire universe screaming how much batteries were a pain in the arse to use. So batteries have finally been updated, and with that in mind, I built a big solar panel array to charge up those batteries. So, first thing we're going to go ahead and do is look here at our power consumption. We're at 26% usage. We're just going to go ahead and fling this over, and the main thing we have running right now are just our artificial gravity generators. And so hop in here, you're going to see it's dropped down to 20.38% usage. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is build ourselves a battery. And to do that, we're going to need some of the supplies out of this container right here. So let's stick our battery in right here, start building it up nice and easy like. Going to need a few more of those power cells, of course. There we are. And we'll finish this off. There we are. And one of the things you'll notice right away is a light is already on in this. And if we click into it, you'll even see that fully recharged in 24 minutes. Notice recharge, discharge, and semi-auto are all off. The battery now sees that the grid has enough power in it currently that this doesn't need to be adding to it. So it basically has a hierarchy of power drawn out, and the battery is below solar panels. So in theory, it goes something along the lines of solar panels first. If there's more power needed to power anything, then it draws from batteries and reactors. Not sure which one comes first on batteries and reactors. It'd be nice if maybe you could set priority somewhere, but currently I don't believe you can manually set that priority. You still have these which will function as they have before, semi-auto, where it'll drain it all the way down to zero, charge it all the way max, and then drain it all the way down again. Recharge, which will just recharge, and discharge, which will just discharge. Pretty nifty thing. And you see right now, of course, fully recharged in 23 minutes. And I should point out that I was doing this earlier, where when I clicked into this, it said, don't know why it says that. Clearly it's not. But anyway, you can see its power usage right now is setting 7.28% because, of course, it could theoretically be pulling from this. But as I said, before I ran into a bit of an issue where I had all these solar panels set up, I put this in and it was draining it. Even though when I had hopped in here before setting up the power supply, the battery, that it said we had like 98% power usage. And when I rotated the solar panels, it went down to 78. Oddly enough, though, as soon as I put this in, that was being drained, even though it clearly said we had a surplus. So to ensure that isn't been drained, I've added this big solar panel thing down here. Also, I've noticed that my tool, if I move about, is starting to be a bit buggy-outy for some reason. I don't know why it's doing that. It's like it's some sort of distance glitch. Anyway, moving on from that platform, down here we have one of the main things of this update, which is hydrogen. And this is a simple demonstration platform where we can go ahead and rotate these to face the sun, and there we are, turn them on, so they're now going to be generating oxygen. This is just proof of concept that the oxygen farms will not generate hydrogen, because you see those three large storage containers right there? Those are the new hydrogen containers, which is a new fuel source you'll need to get used to. Well, necessarily don't need to get you don't necessarily need to get used to, but it's a new fuel source they've added. So, just to check, oxygen is indeed being filled into these oxygen tanks here, and hydrogen is most definitely not, there we go, being filled into this tank here. So, once again, don't use those. They're not going to give you any hydrogen if that's what you're shooting for. Over here, on the other hand, though, we have this nice big setup where we have some new hydrogen thrusters set up over there, a hydrogen tank, and some ice stored in the cargo container linked up to a few generators over here. And what we can do is simply turn this whole system on. So go ahead and turn this on so we can actually see this. We'll do this to allow the ice to be folded through, and then we'll turn on the oxygen generators to allow the ice to actually go into them, and they'll start filling up and generating hydrogen and oxygen. Because of course the oxygen generator probably should be renamed to a, what's it called, electrolysis system, or electrolysis generator, or just electrolysis machine, or water separator. Could just be water separator. Anyway, so these will now be filling up with oxygen lickety split. And we can see there, yep, they are. And then this thing up here should be filling up with hydrogen as well. And yep, sure enough it is. Now what I'm going to do here is actually go to oxygen tanks and select all these and tell them to shut off. And this should, in theory, mean that I believe... Actually, no, it's not going to do anything, because in theory, the same amount of hydrogen will be produced no matter what. I did this test earlier, and the oxygen... By the way, it should be pointed out that the oxygen, the ice, when it's pulled into these, is not equally spread out between them all. Unfortunately, it still all just lumps it into one. You'd have to manually set up your whole system or have some coding knowledge to be able to spread this out. But in theory, shutting down the oxygen tank so they're not going to be taking oxygen in will not produce more hydrogen, because of course the same amount of hydrogen would be produced no matter where the amount of the oxygen is going. This is just a quick test to see if it actually does do it correctly. And let's just give it a minute to run through its process, shall we? So I came over here while those machines were working, and you see here the battery is now switched to saying it's going to be fully depleted in 20 minutes. If I set it to recharge, of course it goes back to recharging itself as it should be. So oddly enough though, you can see here, power usage is at 50%, so we should have more than enough power. So I'm very confused at why this at any time is saying depleted. It should always just be, charging. Current output, see, it's outputting energy. It should not be outputting a single damn thing. See, it has input and output, so it's outputting a tiny little bit, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Depleted is really throwing me off as to why it's putting out any energy when we clearly have a surplus. So that's very finicky, that thing. Very fuddling to me. Alrighty, and there we go. That's full up, which is actually a bad thing, believe it or not, because I did test this earlier, and when I tested this earlier with these oxygen tanks turned on, that only filled up to halfway, and those had also filled up to a certain percentage. But with those off, you can see this is filled up actually to full, and these oxygen generators have actually stopped working because they got nowhere else to send it. So what this is unfortunately doing is just taking this as a fuel source and saying, okay, per one ice we can produce this much of a resource. And where do we send that resource? Well, we'll split it so equally. So we get 3 ice, or 4 ice, we get 4 resource. We'll send 2 of that resource to one tank and 2 of it to another tank. And of course that's not right, because it's really, there's 2 hydrogen for every oxygen. So yes, that should fill up more than an oxygen tank would, but that's not what's happening. It's just using it as a fuel source. So what we could do now is, of course, turn on those oxygen generators, or oxygen tanks, again, and it'll burn out the rest of this, which of course means there should be, for every 1 oxygen produced, there should be 2 hydrogen produced, but that's not what's happening. I believe that's the way that works. I might have gotten myself a little confused with the H2O. It's hydrogen, there's 2 of them, and there's oxygen. Is that how it works? I don't know. I always get befuddled with that. Numbers. Ugh. But you can see now it's stopped because it's actually used up all of the ice. Also, you should probably take note that there's a hydrogen bottle in here. You might even notice that I've been carrying one with me. The hydrogen bottles I've been in the game for a little while now actually have a purpose, and that is, if you look at the bottom left of my screen, you'll actually see a hydrogen thing there. Your jetpack now requires hydrogen fuel for some odd reason. So you can see here, I'm boosting and boosting and boosting, and it is dropping ever so slightly. Now, in the official developer video, they did say that your jetpack will require more hydrogen the higher gravity fields you are. But of course, we are in 0 gravity right now, and you can very clearly see the hydrogen has dropped. A minute amount, yes, but it has indeed dropped. which shouldn't be happening, because in theory, we're still using purely ion thrust right now. It was only once we're in gravity, or even probably natural gravity, that we would actually start having an issue where we would actually require hydrogen. So right now, I think that's more of a bug than anything, as we shouldn't be using any at this moment. Anyway, with our hydrogen tank fully filled up, let's go ahead and turn on our jetpack. That way, when our spectator will still be able to aim at stuff. And let's go ahead and aim at this button right here. And let's turn on some of those thrusters. Hey, what do you say? We actually turn those on and start burning some of this hydrogen. And these thrusters are there. Well, there we go. It took a second for it to actually start piping there. And you see it's gone down from full already. And it's a pretty hefty thrusters. These thrusters are actually very powerful. But they don't require much electricity. They only require the hydrogen fuel source. And now, of course, we can go ahead and also switch on this other one here. So once again, aiming at that, then press T. And there is the big, huge thruster. Hefty thing. Very hefty thing. These things are all pretty cool. And you can see they're going to slowly burn away the hydrogen that we have stored inside here. So we can actually go ahead and check this by flying up. You can see it's already gone down to 2. And oddly enough, it's saying we're at like 67% filled, even though the stars are indicating, well, less than that. I guess that's the 75% filled if it's actually full, since it's below that. That's why it drops to like, hey, we're 50% full. I guess that's the right way of doing that, honestly, see? And, yep, that's definitely the way it's doing it. So, any second now, though, our lovely hydrogen thrusters are all going to power down, though, because it's going to gobble down the rest of that hydrogen. So you can end up burning through this stuff pretty quickly, and as such, you're going to need yourself a pretty hefty supply of ice. It should be pointed out that these thrusters also work on small ships. And the main benefit of this thruster is that once we get planets, unlike ion thrusters, these will, in theory, continue to work on planets and might actually be the best way to get you off planets. So any second now, these should burn out. And I wonder if they'll actually go out in a similar way that they went out. I wonder if they'll go out a similar way to how they turned on, where one went out, or one turned. Nope, they all cut at once. Even though the little tiny flames, the pilot lights, almost did go out in a slight order. Pretty cool stuff, nonetheless. As I said, though, they do have these on small ships as well. So if I fly over here, you can see small ships. Hey! Well, we got our nice big, no, I won't say oxygen, but hydrogen tank set up here. And we can hop into this nice little hydrogen ship right here and begin boosting about the galaxy. And you can even see at the bottom left there, it even shows you the hydrogen amount you still have stored. Presumably that's not just our suit. But given the fact that it's not dropping, it must just be our suit. Unfortunate that. Wow, and you can see these things burn through it like crazy. These were absolutely full, were they not? Hydrogen tank. Yep, there we go. Small. I don't know why they say small. As far as I can tell, there's only one hydrogen tank, but you can see 71% filled. Unfortunately, it does not appear to be shown on your UI how much hydrogen your actual ship has left. As I said, the one on the left is only your character. But nonetheless, watch our speed with this. Watch how quickly we accelerate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds to get up to full speed. Impressive. Now let's stop. 1, 2. I was testing this earlier. Once again, I have been betrayed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. What the heck happened? Well, maybe my tests were with large ships. They have said that in the patch notes they did some tweaks to inertial dampeners. By the way, I'm just going to keep moving, and our thrusters will stop functioning any second now as we run out of, yep, there we go, fuel. So now let's very quickly abandon ship before we get trapped in that floating thing or wreckage. You might have noticed that we didn't really have any reactors in that, just a small, well, a battery pack to give us enough power to start the thrusters up, basically. I've made a military version of the ship. Of course, given how quickly they eat through it, you probably don't want to use that too much. And we see this thing is very slowly draining down. It's, of course, been running the whole time. And this reactor doesn't even have uranium in it, so whoopsie doodle dandy. This is a standard ship, of course, just so you can compare it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, you get it, right? It takes about 10 seconds to get up to full speed. And of course we can keep going for a bit longer. This is all run on battery right now. And let's stop. 1, 2, 3. Still not seeing those inertial dampeners changes we were promised right here, am I? Now, of course, as I said, I did some tests earlier. I did those with large ship tests, with large ships, and I just assumed they'd follow over to small ships. Rather, unfortunately, it does appear that they didn't follow over the small ships. Maybe because they think fighter ships are still going to have some well, people are going to be more used to fighter ships stopping quickly, but, well, nonetheless, I absolutely hate the fact that inertial dampeners, even on small ships, still have far more power than they should, and the fact that they can automatically stop you faster than you could manually. Rather annoying, that. Okay, last thing we have for small ships, then we'll move on to the big ships. I'll show you the thrusters and stuff like I just showed you there, but on them, we got this new port that's been added to the front of the small ship cockpit, so you can have your, pipes come into the back and then carry on out the front. Nifty. It is also useful that if you have something like this, a lovely little small ship vent. This isn't a mod, this has actually been in the game for a little while, I think. Am I remembering that? Maybe it was just added and I missed it in the patch notes. I think it was actually added in a little while back. But I think the main idea for this is, as we were speculating when we were thinking about having one of these, is it would be a good idea to have one of these so you could take oxygen in if you were on a planet. So here we go. We've set it right up at the very convenient little port if you have like one of these cockpits stuck at the front of your ship. And now we could, in theory, go ahead and select that air vent and tell it to depressurize. And now, in theory, if we had power and we're in an oxygenated environment, it would be pulling oxygen into that cockpit and into any oxygen tanks you had with it. Rather, unfortunately, we don't have either of those. Let's go ahead and take our little ship right here and fly over with our bullshit inertial dampeners over to the large ship area. Yes, indeed, we do have a large ship area, and you can see those green lights just dropping like crazy. My God, did this ever burn through it. We do get incredible acceleration, but Jesus Christ, it burns through that fuel so damn quick. It's pretty much gone, isn't it? Any second now, these thrusters are just going to stop functioning. That was it. Yep, they're definitely dead. It's cool. It's just amazing how quickly they burn through it. I'm kind of alright with it, though. The idea is you want these things not being your main fuel source, but to be your main source to get you up to a speed quickly, and then theoretically you'd go ahead and switch that thruster off, or just turn off your inertial dampeners. Okay, so we got our large ship version here. You can see we actually have it up to its own little docking area here, where we have some oxygen storage tanks and oxygen generators here. Well, hydrogen storage tanks and oxygen generators. I've forgotten the fucking word. Electrolysis, that's the word. I did have to Google it. I keep forgetting the damn thing. The electrolysis machines here to go ahead and separate hydrogen and oxygen. Of course, nowhere for that oxygen to go. In theory, we'd be sending one oxygen out for every 2 hydrogen. Whoopsie doodle dandy. Looks like that's not actually happening. There should be like a little vent on this. It's always eking out excess if you're refining oxygen or hydrogen and not both of them. Anyway, we got our little docking here, so we could connect and refuel through it. I did test to make sure you can actually refuel through those, but we don't need to refuel right now, so we can actually go ahead and rather sillily, convert this to a ship and get ourselves on the move. Wowzers, look at that. How quickly we got up to speed. So let's actually do this again, shall we? 1, 2, we're there. We're at max speed. Super duper quick on this little ship. And let's stop. 1, 2. Notice that it actually took the same amount of time pretty much to accelerate as it does to decelerate. Absolutely exactly as it should be. And let us move also to the left or right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Max speed has been reached. Let's stop. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've pretty much stopped. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. The way it should be for all large and small ships. They've done it for large ships, at least with these thrusters. That is fantastic. And once again, it is, I believe... Let's see how long it takes us to get up max speed. Let's stop and rethink that. 1, 2, pretty much 2 seconds. Pretty damn nifty. And you can see, just like before, it's eating through these tanks at a reasonable speed. These are pretty hefty tanks, and they seem to last a rather long time compared to the small ship tanks and the small ship large thrusters. Let's just do a really quick test. For hydrogen, there is only one tank here, so I don't know exactly why when we were aiming at small ships it was saying, when we looked it up in the systems of a small ship, it was saying small hydrogen tank. Odd. Anyway, let's go ahead and compare that speed. It took us about 2 seconds to get up to max speed. Let's go ahead and set ownership to us and convert this son of a gun to a ship. And once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so about 8 seconds. So you can see there, and even here, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see it's most definitely working the way it should be. So large ships finally work the way they should have always worked. Also, what was that? Did you see that? Let's rotate this way so we're facing the sun. I appear to be casting a light out of my cockpit. Let's disable our flashlight and then get in there. That's kind of cool. You can actually turn on your flashlight and then get in the cockpit, and the light will actually shine out from here. Shame you can't aim your head and move the light. Huh. Pretty nifty little thing I never noticed before. Anyway, that's awesome. I absolutely love the fact that they finally got inertial dampeners function the way they should, at least on large ships. Hopefully it's just an oversight that small ships haven't gotten this fix yet. And hopefully they'll get that fixed nice and soon. Anyways, that is that for this update. Still a bit finicky with the fact that those son of gun... Whack! Those son of a gun batteries are being a bit finicky, where we clearly have excess power, and yet they are still draining themselves somewhat. They should most definitely not be doing that. Yeah, the hierarchy is not in place. It's clearly something else. The way they described it was they can take power and receive power at the same time, so clearly it's something fickle to do with that system, and it's still not ideal. Hopefully they'll get a power hierarchy in place and get it working properly sooner rather than later. Hopefully before planets come out, I guess, because, well, considering they're tweaking some of it now, maybe they just want to get all their ducks in line for space-based stuff before we get planets. Who knows? Maybe we'll have coal on planets, so we're doing filthy monstrosities that deserve to be punished and suffer eternal, and I'm going off on a tangent I shouldn't be. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you a bunch for watching, and I shall see you, ladies and gentle sausages, next time. Ta-ta. And yes, I did record this twice. That's why I'm a bit extra grumpy.
Eternal.